Oh, I see a sign the flyback may need replaced still. Alright, so you see that jumping, that's a clear sign of a flyback needing replaced. Luckily I've got one on hand, so I'm going to have to probably replace that before this goes to find a new home. But what's up guys, it's Matt with Galaxy Games 843 back with another video. Today it's an arcade video, and what we're going to do is replace the flyback on this Sanyo 20EZ Nintendo Donkey Kong monitor chassis. I know that's a lot of words. Anyway, what we're going to do though, in our last video, as you saw, there was like a jumping in the picture after it warmed up, and that's a clear sign that the flyback needs replaced. So I've got this replacement flyback right here. Let's take a look at it. So it's obviously not the exact same as the original, but here it is. Here's your high voltage flyback transformer. As you can see, it's got a separate wire here than most regular flybacks. So luckily I've done quite a few of these, so this isn't going to be a problem. I will let you know though, these pins right here never ever line up properly, so we're gonna have to bend those into shape. But before we can go ahead and install this, we got to take these this chassis and this monitor apart, and that can be a challenge in itself also. So we're just going to set this off to the side for now. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you a quick overview of how to take apart the chassis. Now I've already taken this one apart and put it back together because I've done capacitor changes on it. So there's one key piece that's kind of missing, and it's the flyback transformer cage. Usually there's a cage, a metal cage that goes around this piece. I never put them back on after I take one apart, just because I think they're a pain in the butt and I don't think they do any good. So typically, if you've never worked on your Sanyo 20EZ, you're gonna have to take off the flyback cage. So it's 2 screws here and 2 screws here. You pull those out, throw the cage away. That's what I do. All right, so next, before we do anything else, we need to discharge this tube. Now this is one that I haven't washed. And I'll do another video in the future when I wash an arcade monitor. I know it sounds crazy, but I will actually literally wash an arcade monitor. Not going to do it in this video. I'll show it in a future video. Right now, we're going to see if this tube is holding any charge. So let me try and position the camera a little closer. So what we need to do is short the anode right here on this on the tube. And to do that, we're going to use a flathead screwdriver, and I'm just going to use an alligator wire. This is from Harbor Freight, and some people will get some real high-tech tools. I'm not really that high-tech when it comes to tools. All I'm going to do is clip my alligator clip to the base of this screwdriver. Now the other end I'm going to clip to the frame. Make sure you can see it in the shot here. So I'm just going to clip it right to the monitor frame. So now we've got a grounding point. So now what I need to do is put this behind that anode to short it. And what that will do is discharge any remaining charge that's here in the tube. Now, this has been off for a couple days, so you might not see any effect at all by doing this, but it's always better safe than sorry when it comes to working with high voltage electricity. As you can see right here, it says danger high voltage. So we need to make sure we're not going to shock ourselves. So let's go ahead and discharge. Let's see if anything happens. What we're listening for is a little pop of electricity. Okay, yeah, there's no pop. This tube was already discharged. It's been off for a few days, so nothing to worry about. So all we're going to do now is just disconnect that anode. And to do that, I use that same screwdriver to just pop these little things off. See there's like little hooks there? See those little hooks? Those go into that anode hole right there. All right, with that done, we can move this out of the way. I'll usually just check that tube one more time to make sure there's no charge. All right, so we're good to go. All right, we can move that stuff out of the way. And now what we need to do is remove a couple screws and then start taking this chassis apart. Put the camera back over here. This might be a little difficult to see how I have it set up, so let me move some of this stuff out of the way. Got my soldering tools over there. And usually I just use a couple Phillips head screwdrivers. Probably this one is probably the one I'll use because it's got a smaller tip. So what we need to do now is remove a couple screws. So the very first screw is one that no one ever thinks about, but you have to do it. And it's actually underneath the chassis. So what I typically do, I'll tip this on the side, like so. I know you can't see it on camera, but the screw is right here. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove that one screw real quick.
Sorry, I don't have an answer for that.
Alexa, I'm not talking to you.
Sorry, I thought I heard my name.
No, you did not hear your name, Alexa. Thanks anyway. Alexa just wanted to make an appearance. All right, and there we go. So there's the screw from the bottom, as you can see. One little screw from the bottom. So now that we got that out of the way, we can set this back up right. We got to remove 2 more screws. Well, a couple more, but 2 for the chassis. So one right here. Make sure you can see that in the shot. So one right here. So all I do is I pull that out, and it's got a little like grounding clip that goes under that screw too. Pull that out and set it aside. Now on this side of the chassis, you have to remove the screw for the adjustment board. Again, I know it's tough to see on camera, guys, but it is what it is. All right, so there's 3 screws removed. The only other ones we'll have to remove are the 2 that connect this neck board protector here. So let's go ahead and pull those out too. Now those are the difference. I'm going to use a little bit bigger screwdriver. Set those aside. And for once, it is actually storming here in South Carolina. My grass is finally getting watered. So if you hear the storm and the rain in the background, you know, that's what it is. All right, so to remove this, you just kind of lift up so that these little clips release, and then it's out of the way as well. All right, so now we've got our full access. So it's time to start unplugging things and disconnecting things. It sounds complicated, but it's really not, guys. I've done this a million times. It's not a big deal. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is disconnect the ground from the neck board. Here we go. See, it's simple ground from the neck board. I'll usually hang that somewhere up here around the frame so it's out of the way. There we go. All right. Next, I'm going to loosen and pull the neck board off of the tube. There we go. Nice and easy. All right, now we need to disconnect a few things over on this side. Let me move the camera over here. I know it's tough to see, but I'll do the best I can. All right, so we need to disconnect these 3 connections. They're all about the sound, and when we're putting these back on, we need to make sure we put them on properly. Otherwise, we're going to fry our PCB. So we're not going to do that today. All right, so we got those 3 disconnected. So now what we can do is we can take this adjustment board and kind of move it out of the way. See how that all just kind of, and it does have wire channels here, but I never put the wires back in after I pop them out. Power cord goes to the chassis, everything's good to go. Now what we need to do is just loosen up these little pegs here in order to to pop the chassis off. Now I've already done that, so all we're going to do now is kind of start sliding that chassis out the side. Now before we do that though, we do need to disconnect this cable right here. Let's see if we can see it over here. This is your degauss cable. You see that right here? This connector right here, we just got to pop it up like this. And of course it's going to give me trouble while I'm on camera. There we go. Just all I did was to just pop that out. All right, back to the other side. I'm going to start sliding this way, and we're going to pull the neck board through. Now the only other real hard connector to work with is the yoke connector. Again, I know you can't see. We might have a little power outage here. That'll be fun for the video, right? So this is the yoke connector right here. It can be challenging to get it out of there sometimes. So let's go and see if we can't pull it off there today. Like I said, it can be challenging, and today is going to be challenging. There we go. There's our yoke connector, and what I always do is this red wire always goes to the right, so I always remember red to the right. Red to the right. Okay, with that pulled out, now we can pull all of our stuff right out from the frame. There we go. All right, everything is out from the frame. I'm going to go ahead and set the tube out of the way. All right, tube is now out of the way, and now we're ready to work on our chassis here. So again, this is going to involve some soldering now. So what we need to do is we need to desolder this old flyback transformer and pull it out. But before we do, there's one more screw This is only when you're changing a flyback transformer. It's this screw right here. Let's go ahead and pull that screw out. Otherwise, after we desolder the flyback transformer, it won't pull out because that screw is still holding it in. All right. Let's see if I can't get a better angle here on the actual work that we'll be doing. All right, we are ready to go. So the next step, I guess we'll say, is we need to remove the old flyback transformer. Now, there's going to be some key things too, because this adjustment board panel thing here, if you notice, the new replacement flyback transformer does not have one of those. So we are going to have to reuse that. So we'll talk about how that's going to work in just a minute. But it basically controls the focus and the brightness from the flyback transformer. So let's go ahead and desolder, and then I'll show you how those next steps are going to go. So all we're going to do to desolder is just flip it over, and we're going to remove all the solder on these pads right here. Now, some of you may have some really high-tech tools out there. I do not. So all I have is a soldering iron and a solder puller. But before we start using that puller, I'm going to add some fresh solder to these joints, because what that should do is to make it easier to remove the old solder. So all I'm doing is adding some fresh solder here. And then we can remove the solder from those joints. Hope you guys can see this good. I can't tell if that's showing up on camera good or not. Couple more. All right, those are good to go. Now, another tip I'm going to give you is when you're using a solder puller, have somewhere to expel the old solder. I'm just going to use a trash water bottle. So this is just a plain old water bottle. What I'm going to do is use it to put the solder into. All right, next we're going to use our solder puller and our soldering iron to remove those solder joints, all going around the flyback. All we're doing is heating it up, sucking it out. And these are pretty beefy joints, so you might have to do it a couple times. And I'm going to work my way around that circle now and do that. Sounds like it's getting pretty fun outside. I don't know if you guys can hear the thunder. But we need it, guys. It hasn't rained here in South Carolina in like 2 weeks, so I've been manually watering my grass, and all my neighbors, their grass is like dead. Not all my neighbors, but most of them. There's a couple of us that really are kind of freaks about our yard. So if they're watching, guys, I'm not talking about your dead grass. It's everyone else's. See, all I'm doing is heating up this solder pad and pulling the old solder out. And I know it's not getting it all. I'm going to have to go back over these guys. So don't expect, especially if you don't have the good desoldering tools. Oh, and I just created a bridge. Let me redo that one. There we go. All right, last one, then I'll probably have to go back over them one more time. pulling so much solder out of that. There we go. All right, let's go back over them one more time. Get all the old solder out. And then the old flyback should be pretty easy to remove. If we get all the solder good, the old flyback should be very easy to remove. We're not even to the hardest part yet, guys. Honestly, the hardest part of this whole job is putting the brand new flyback through the chassis because, like I said, the pins just don't line up. So it's a lot of trial and error of getting the pins lined up and put back through the holes in this chassis. All right, so we've got the majority of the solder out. Let's see how easy this is to remove this flyback transformer now. Let's see. We're gonna flip it upside down. You know what? We're also going to pull. There's one more screw right here. Let's pull that out too. I can't recall if we need to or not, but I think we need to because we're gonna need to reuse this piece. Let's go ahead and pull that out too. That actually attaches to the old flyback. But the new flyback doesn't have a screw hole for that, so we'll tell you how we're going to deal with that as well. All right, got that pulled out. All right, old flyback actually came out pretty easy because we desoldered it twice. So here's the old flyback, and the only other thing we're going to need to do here is notice the bottom of the flyback. So notice how there's two wires, a red wire and a black wire, and they go to certain pins on the flyback. So we need to make sure that we salvage these wires and solder them to those same pins on the new flyback. So here what we're looking at is, you can see, here's old and new. So we need to take the black wire to this pin right here and the red wire to this pin right here. So before we can do that, we're going to desolder the wires from the bottom of the old flyback too. So let's see, what do I have? So I'm just going to wedge this up here like that so you can see. There we go. You should be able to see that. And this is a dirty job, guys. There's like years of grime on these things. So let's see. So I like to be a little careful with this because it actually has little rings, little metal rings, that if you can save them, you can use them on the new flyback to make it easier to solder it back on. I should probably add some old solder, or some new solder. Let me wedge this here like that. There we go. Can we see that? I think we can kind of see that. All right. Let's put some new solder in these things. Got some new solder in there. Let's see if we can suck the old solder out now. Not really. Sometimes we can just kind of coax it up. Yeah, that's all I'm doing is heating it up now and just pushing the wire up. There we go. Now we got that one disconnected. That's going to be hot for a second, so I'll show you what I'm talking about in just a moment. Let me add some fresh solder to this other one. My automatic lights are turning off. Get the turn back on here. There we go. Okay. Can we still see, guys? Yeah, okay. So now all I'm going to try and do is push this other wire up like I did with the other one. So all I'm doing is heating that up, trying to slide it up that pin. There we go. All right. So that one is now disconnected as well. Those are both disconnected. So the only wire we need to worry about now is this white wire here that goes to this. So all we're going to do, I'm going to grab some snips and some wire strippers. And we are going to cut that off, just like so. All right, now that we got that cut off, this old Flyback is now garbage. So we're going to leave it sit over here just so we can reference those pins one more time when we're putting the new ones, the old ones on. So we're just going to move this out of the way for now. Okay, we'll let that sit over there. All right, new Flyback. So as you can imagine, this wire goes to this white wire, and then these two wires are going to go on these pins. All right, so let's go ahead and strip the end of this real quick here. And we might as well make a good solder connection with these two things, right? So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so those are on there. Let's go ahead and solder those up so those aren't coming apart. All right, now I am going to grab a little bit of electrical tape and just tape that off. Just so that way there's no exposed wire. Okay, now we need to attach the pins to the wires. Now, do you remember which ones? I know it's this pin and this pin, but I don't remember which wire goes to which. So I need to check my footage real quick. I'll be right back. All right, didn't have to go back and check my footage because I did find real quick an archive of the old Bob Roberts instruction page. So there you go. If you can see that on the screen, the black wire goes to this pin, red wire goes to that pin. So thanks, Bob Roberts, for all the information you've given to us over the years. Thank God your stuff is archived and it will be there forever. Okay, so let's see if we can see here. So I know it's tough to see, but there is a little like metal piece that will actually go right over that pin. So let's see if we can't get that on there. I might have to desolder more of that. Yeah, we're gonna have to desolder more of that. Okay. All I'm doing is removing some of that excess solder off of there. Do it for the red side too. Let me bend it out so it's easier to do there. Okay, now we're going to try and put those onto these pins. So again, the black goes to this bottom pin here. And of course it's not going to be easy. Let's try and make a little bit more room with the solder here. Makes that wire hot. I think I actually filled the hole in. That's not good. All right, you know what? We're just going to straighten that out here and then wrap it around the bottom of the pin. I think the new pins are a little bit fatter too. At least it seems that way. I'm not 100% sure on that. But that makes it a little bit more challenging to get these wires onto these pins. to get a little creative here. Here we go. Almost there, guys. Alright, so we got that one sitting there. Let's go get it soldered in so it doesn't go anywhere. There's some thunder. Alright, got that one soldered on. So you can see it's good and on there. Next one. Almost wants to go on there, but not quite. There we go. All right, let's solder that thing on before it goes anywhere. All right. Now, I know that looked hard, but it really wasn't that bad. Okay, so now for the hard part. So remember I said getting these pins through the monitor chassis is the hardest part. I'm going to let you watch me struggle for just a minute, and then I'll probably turn off the camera and then fight with it for another half an hour or so. So let's just do this. Let's pick it up. So remember, this anchor piece is going to go where this part is like dented out. All right, so let's see. Lining up all these pins is, like I said, is the hardest part. Yeah, because none of them are at all lined up. And what will happen is when you get one lined up, the other ones won't line up. So you pretty much have to play a game where you bend the pins around like so. And it's like left or right or back and forth. You never really know. So you just kind of try and get a feel for them, and then, you know, sooner or later you'll get it worked out. All right, so like I said, I'm not going to make you watch me do all this because this is the challenge. This is the hardest part. Once I get this done, I'll be right back, and then we'll do our soldering and finish it up. All right, guys, we're back. So I struggled with this thing for, I don't know, 20 minutes or so, and I finally got all the pins through and lined up properly. So now it's pretty much smooth sailing from here. We got to resolder all these pins, then we have to reattach that adjustment board to the front. Then we just have to put it all back together. So like I said, much easier going forward. So I've got my solder here, got my soldering iron. Let's go ahead and put and resolder these pins back in. So you'll want to use an ample amount of solder because you want good coverage, so you don't have any cold joints here. And you'll know when it's right. That one could probably use a little bit more. I'm using my thin solder tonight because I can't find my thick solder, so it takes a little bit more. There we go. All right. Think of it like a surgeon just stitching up his surgery. Wish I had my thick solder. It would make this so much easier. There we go. All right, just a couple more pins to go. Helps to clean your tip every now and then too. There we go. I can't even hold my solder right. Two more, guys. Two more. Stay with me here. All right, last one. Okay, those all look pretty good. Quick inspection. I don't see any bridges. Everything looks good. All right. Now, you know what? I want some more on this one up here. There we go. Okay. So now remember we said we had to mount the adjustment board. We're all done soldering. Let's talk about how we're going to mount the adjustment board. So as you can see, the adjustment board, actually, I didn't give myself a lot of room. So we're going to have to mount it just kind of like that. We're going to drill a hole in this piece of metal right here and just mount it to that. So that's what we're going to do next. Let me grab my drill and a new bit. Doesn't have to be anything crazy, guys. Just one hole right there. All right, there we go. All right, got the hole drilled. Let's take our screw here and just put it right back in there. And that'll save that adjustment board from flopping around. All right, so we're pretty much ready to go. So we've got our new anode cap, all that good stuff. Everything's ready to go. Now it's time to put it back together. All right, we're ready to go. Do you all remember the steps we did to take it apart? Now we just have to do all those same steps, but in reverse to put it back together. So again, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check and make sure there's no charge in the tube. I don't think there will be, but I'm just going to check one more time just to make sure. Okay, nothing, because you know I don't want to get bit by that, so that's why I check so many times. All right, so to put it all back together, we kind of have to do the same thing. Everything has to go in through the side, so I'm going to fish the adjustment board, the neck board, and the power cord in through the side like that. starting with the power cord, into the side, and out the other side. So next I'm going to take the whole thing and just kind of slide it like that. And I'm going to fit the adjustment board through. And the neck board I'm going to put in between these two rails here. Just like that. And you're going to get caught on these different things as you do it. Just move things around. It'll be okay. There we go. All right, I've got it all lined up. Now I'm just going to pop it back into place. All right, there we go. So what am I going to do next? Next, I am going to start reconnecting some of the connections, because you want to make sure all your connections are reconnected. So I'm going to start with the yoke connector. Where did my yoke? Here's my yoke connector. All right, remember we said red to the right earlier, so I'm going to make sure the red wire is facing to the right of the chassis. I'm going to put that back on there like so. There we go. All right, next I'm going to put the neck board back on, and it only goes on one way. As you can see, it's got like a key in it, so make sure that key is lined up properly on your tube. And you're just going to kind of wiggle it on so it's nice and tight. All right, once that's on there, you're good to go. I'm going to take that neck board ground that we put out of the way, put it back on the neck board. Easy peasy, right? I'm going to, well, you know, before I do that, let's this way. I'm going to reconnect the degauss. So that just kind of fits in here and just plugs onto these two plugs. I know you can't see it, guys, but it's two plugs, two pins. So those are on there. Now I want to put all this back together. Remember I said we need to put it back together a certain way, because if we don't, we're going to fry our PCB. So let's go ahead and slide this into place. We'll go ahead and put that screw in. Where'd all my screws go? Did I slide them out of the way? I did. Here's all my screws over here. So I'm just going to put this one screw right here to hold this adjustment board in place. Okay. All right, now we're going to make our connections to the soundboard. So there's this connection, and this connection. Now the JD connection is the small one, so you can't put that in any other place but the place it goes, which is right back here on the side. So we'll plug that in. Now these are the two that people mess up. So one's labeled JC, the other is labeled JB. So look on the soundboard. The one to the left is labeled JB, and the one to the right is labeled JC. So make sure you're putting them on the proper one. So JC is going to go to JC on the soundboard, and JB is going to go to JB on the soundboard. Like so. All right, so that's all reconnected. Now that we got that all connected up, the only thing we have left to really do is our anode. So let's go and do that real quick. I'm doing some spot checks too. So let's go ahead and redo the anode, then we'll do our last couple of screws. So for the anode, remember I said there were those two little clips in there. So all we need to do is put those clips in that hole and then use that suction cup to cover it up. So all I'm going to do is put one side in, squeeze it in so the other side pops in. So now you can see they're connected. And now the suction cup has it covered up. All right. Two more screws, the neck board connector, and we are good to go. So let's put these other screws in. So what I do for this is I'll start this screw here, like so. Get it started. And then I take this little fork or spade connector, put it under the screw, and then tighten it up. All right, so that one's on. Let's go and put the neck board connector on next. So it just slides down onto that. Put the two screws back in. These never want to go in for me very easily. I'll go ahead and tighten those up off camera. All right, one last screw. It's the one underneath. It was the very first one we took out. So let's tip it to the side again. And it goes right up in here, guys. So let me go ahead and put that in there. I know you can't see this. It just goes right up and attaches the chassis back down. All right, so we got our new flyback in place. I'm going to do another visual real quick. So anode is connected, neck board is connected, neck board ground is connected, yoke is connected, degauss is connected, and the audio connections are complete. Hey guys, thanks for making it all the way to the end of the video. Again, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We're working our way to that next milestone and we need your help to get there. So if you haven't done so yet, click that subscribe button, click that bell notification so you get notified when our new videos and our live streams go live. And while you're down there, please give us a thumbs up to like the video and also make sure you share our videos with your friends. All right guys, thanks so much for taking the time to watch our videos and thank you so much for your support. We really do appreciate you all. It is time to wrap this video up, guys. This is Matt with Galaxy Games 843. We'll see you next time.